Nice to see all of you. It's been a busy weekend here, but we got all the furniture almost put back, so that's good. And can you hear me now?
Very well.
Awesome. Okay. We keep working on this. Today's reading about the blind man has a whole bunch of levels, and we hear the story. We've heard it before. The blind man was blind from birth, and Jesus healed him. And in the end, the blind man decides Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God. But we're going to look today at what happened in the meantime. We've heard the whole long story, and I want to thank Virginia for reading that so well for us. I actually was able to follow the story and understand it, and that was wonderful. So, they go in the city, and there's this blind guy. Now, everybody in the city, in the town, that they all walk along. He's got his spot, that's his spot to beg, because he was born blind and there's nothing else he can do, so he has a beggar spot. Now, he has a spot, that's his place, he gets to sit there, and that's where he does his begging. And like so many things, that if it's always there, it sometimes becomes invisible. So they all kind of walk by, they all look at him now and then, but they never really saw him. He was the blind guy. Day after day, he sits and begs, and they wander and they wonder. And he had never seen their faces until that day. He'd never seen his own face, he'd never seen his parents' face, he'd never seen sunrise, stars, felt rain, but never saw it, not even a smile. It was like he didn't exist, like he was just invisible. For me, it's like there's a life just waiting to be born in this man. He's just waiting to become. So on this day, Jesus reaches down and he makes mud. He uses the soil, the dirt of the earth, like God creating Adam in the Genesis story. And he uses that mud and plasters it all over this guy's eyes. Now, being a seeing person, I probably wouldn't be very happy if somebody threw a bunch of mud on my eyes. But I don't think it made a lot of difference to the blind guy. He just thought, well, okay, fine. And then, not after having made his eyes and his face all filthy and muddy, Jesus says, okay, now go wash. Oh, well, okay, go wash. Meanwhile, he goes while she gets to see. Getting back to the people and the disciples, they see a theological question, and wanting to be important disciples and apostles and good students, they say, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents? So, why did they say that? Just because the guy's blind? Well, at that time, the Jews believed that someone who was handicapped like that from birth, either there was sin in them or in their parents, and that they were being punished for the sin. It was a popular belief at the time. It was one of those things like, well, suffering is caused by sin. Therefore, if you are suffering, you must be full of sin. The neighbors, they can't see past what they always knew about the guy. So when he can see, the other people are blinded by disbelief. They keep asking him over and over. You heard that in the story. Over and over. How were your eyes opened? How did he do that? The religious leaders call him in a couple of times. They interrogate him. I think it was CSI. Well, they just they cannot see this prophet. The man said, he's a prophet. He opened my eyes. Both times they go through this big interrogation. Both times the man gives glory to God. Prophets, as we've been learning, or as I've been kind of hammering in, speak the truth to someone. Prophets tell us what's really going on. Prophets open our eyes to reality. That's why he said this man, he was a prophet. Prophets don't necessarily tell us which horse is going to win the race. Prophets speak truth. Prophets come to the leaders, the religious leaders, these guys, the political leaders, and speak the truth. They might be saying, you're really messing up, and if you don't fix it, your whole life is going to collapse, and then they don't fix it, and their life collapses. So, okay, they told the future there. But what they're really doing is telling the truth to these people. But as this man tries to tell them the truth, this new creation, man, he's got a brand new life, they turn a blind eye to him. There's a saying that says there is no one more blind than he or she who chooses not to see. Those folks were choosing power and rules and boundaries and things like that over the truth of what was right in front of them. The parents, okay, so we have 2 interrogations by religious leaders. So now they go to their parents. Now they say, yeah, this is our son, and he was blind. He was blind from birth. No, it wasn't an act, and now he's seeing. But we don't know about it. We don't know who did it, and we don't know how. That's his problem. Ask him. He's old enough. What is that? Again, denial of what is right in front of them. Choosing to be blind. Why? Why do we choose not to see things? Yes. A+. Fear. Fear keeps us from seeing the larger reality. Fear keeps us from living with our larger vision. Fear keeps us from following through on that truth that is spoken to us. Everybody gets tunnel vision when they're afraid of something. They just, okay, I'm not going to look over there. I'm afraid of that. I'm going to look over here. Everybody looked at this man, but they didn't see him. If they had seen him, they would have had to confront their very own blindness. This man who's blind from birth, he's not just one single person. Now, he may have been one single person at the time, but the reason he's in our gospel, the reason he's in our story, is because he really is every man and every woman. The only difference between him and all the others in today's reading is that he knew he was blind. He knew it. And until we know that we're blind, whether it's blinded by fear or egotisticalness, is that a word? Maybe. A lust for power, a lust for importance. Until we know that we're blind and that we're missing out, we can't see. We won't even receive those new eyes, no matter how often God tries to give them to us. If we won't take the gift, we can't receive it. So what do these Pharisees and rulers say? Some of the Pharisees near him heard this and said, "Surely we are not blind. Surely it's not us. We know all the righteous things. about the quality of our physical vision or our eyes. You saw me switching around glasses. I have my issues. It's not about that. It's not about the darkness around us. When the lights go out and I can't see. I'm one of those people that have fairly weak night vision. I wear my glasses at night when I drive. DMV doesn't make me do that, but I wear them because it's easier for me to drive with that. It is not that darkness either. It's not our glaucoma. It's not the sty. It's the darkness inside of us. How we see others and how we see the world and the way we see life is less about the objects of our seeing, less about you, for me, and more about ourselves, where it is we're looking out of. People, human beings, I don't know about the animals, but we don't see God or people or things or circumstances. Well, I won't say we don't. We rarely see God or things or people or circumstances as they really are. We see them as we are. Until our eyes are opened by Christ, our seeing is really just a projection of ourselves on the world. What we see is how we are manifesting our inner world. How we see things describes fears and attachments and beliefs that are within us. Now that doesn't mean that something isn't scary. It doesn't mean that something isn't wrong. It just means that everything we see is colored by our own mind, our own experiences, and our own self. And to get beyond it, we have to accept the gift of sight from God. We have to be willing to let go of our built-in distortion lenses and use those clear ones that God will give us. Now, how can we get those and put them on and see? Because, I can't change my glasses until I take off the other pair. These don't work. They're for music or reading. Just a sea of fuzz. These, there you are. But I had to take these off. That means we have to attend to what's going on within us, right? I mean, that was a little simple demonstration, but we have to attend to what's inside of us in our mind in order to have true sight. It begins with our heart, not with our eyes. How do we attend to it? I don't want to say all that and then leave you hanging. It's not an easy fix. But how we start is we begin to acknowledge what those fears are. We begin to acknowledge what those attachments are that distract us from what's really important. And we begin to acknowledge whatever beliefs we have inside of us that might be wrong and that have impaired our true vision. Now, as a little exercise, I want you to think about a time. Now, I don't want you to really go there because I don't want to have any crises. Okay, but think about a time when you were scared, really scared. Just think about it. It might have been a roller coaster, something simple like that. It might have been walking down the street and a big dog behind a fence charges up to the fence. Me, I say hi. But it might have scared you. You might have been ill. You might have been afraid of losing your health. You might have a loved one that was ill, that you were afraid of losing them or losing their quality of life. You might have had something happen to someone that frightened you. You might have lost your job or your home. Been there. Fear can blind you. It takes away our attention from life, and it focuses on that thing we fear. Whenever we're afraid of something, that's where our focus is. And it's not to say we shouldn't be careful. It's not to say we shouldn't handle whatever's wrong. We should. But if it excludes everything around us and what's right with the world and what's important to God and to us, if it so distracts our attention that we have no attention left for the good things, that's a big problem. It narrows our whole view just to that. We become nearly myopic about it. That's nearsighted to the point of excluding everything except for what's right here. Right? Okay, so now let go of that thing that you were afraid of. And let's think about attachments for a moment. Those are the things that we think we have to have. Things or people or activities that we think we have to be happy. We can't imagine living without them. I can't imagine living without a computer. Probably need to work on that. The Bible calls them idols. If we are so attached to them that we are ignoring what's really important in life. Modern society calls them addictions. Whatever they are, when we have that sort of a obsessed attachment with something, we turn a blind eye to anything else. Again, our vision becomes selective. We probably also all know somebody who's so fanatical in their own beliefs, philosophies, that they cannot see any other points of view. They might refuse to look even at anything or listen to anyone who has a slightly different way of thinking or doing things. Hopefully, we are not those people. We all have to look at ourselves about that. As a church family, as a community, and even as a wider denomination, we strive to not be those people. That is true of us. But we just have to make sure. And that's something for each individual to not cling so hard to an obsessive and narrow belief that we refuse to open our ears and listen to someone else's wisdom. If we do that, we end up not living in God's world, but in some world we create in our own head. So again, get that mud all over our eyes, wash them out, and open up, be new creations, and see God's world. That inner darkness, fears, attachments, obsessive beliefs, refusing to be open to other sides, those things are what keep us from truly seeing each other and seeing God's word and seeing God's will and seeing God's world. In placing mud on the blind man's eyes, Jesus is holding before him the reality of his blindness. The man at that point is wearing thick, black, muddy, filthy lenses of fear, attachments, beliefs. We all do that to some extent, here and there. We all are working on learning to get past those. Those who know this and who understand it are sent to wash in the pool and be recreated and to see with those new eyes. Once in darkness, now in light. The rest, the ones who won't wash, They'll continue looking, but they won't see. They'll just have their faces all caked with mud. So don't just look around. Look within and determine what you see and how you see. Take a look and see if there's any mud in there that you need to wash out. If there is, name it, acknowledge it, and go wash it. That mud of darkness, it will always give way to the cleansing and to the light of Christ. The man wasn't a sinner. His parents, he wasn't blind because his parents had sinned or his grandfather had sinned. He was blind simply so that Jesus could demonstrate this truth and open his eyes and his disciples' eyes and the Pharisees' eyes and the parents' eyes. He was born to teach us. May we all